Thanks, man, for coming to the defense of the Churchlands. Somebody's got to do it, but here's the thing. Um, you praise the Churchlands and Dennett and Metzinger and these other representationalists for going to the neuroscience before constructing their philosophical interpretations. But the problem is that how we interpret those experiments, those you know neurological empirical observations, we have to define consciousness in a certain way, and depending on how we define it, our interpretations will be different. Um, if we define consciousness as a representation in the neural structure of the brain, then we can say, like you did, that consciousness tends to lag behind the brain activities which are actually responsible for our behavior. So it isn't causally implicated in what we do or even what we think. But you say that only because you assume consciousness is localizable, that you can point to a specific place in the brain, even if it's a distributed place, it's still a shape or a structure of neural relationships. You're assuming that consciousness is located there, when I would say that consciousness is a process. It's extended over time, such that the past and the present are immanent in every moment of our experience. We don't experience an instant. Consciousness isn't a fixed pattern. It's a process, and it's a non-local process. Conscious experience only ever occurs when a brain is in a body, in a world. Outside that scenario, there is no consciousness. So to say that it's simply in here somewhere, I think, neglects this underlying complexity. The word experience itself, if you break it down etymologically, it means to go out of and through. So our conscious experience is this process of going out of and through, from the brain through the body, through the world, and back again. This is why we have to begin, I think, with metaphysics before we try to study consciousness, because depending on our ontological breakdown of and description or explanation of the fundamental features of reality, what we think consciousness even is changes. So if we define consciousness as representation, we're saying it is information processing. It's some kind of computational process going on in the skull. And you said the Churchlands aren't dualists, and that Dennett is famous for saying that some people say they're non-dualists even while they still use dualist language. But see, I think Dennett is the prime example of exactly that kind of philosopher, and the Churchlands as well. Because, okay, let's say this is information processing. That's what my conscious experience is. What is information? Is it substrate neutral? I've certainly heard Dennett describe it that way. If information is substrate neutral, then there's your dualism right there. And if you say that information is not substrate neutral, that it's just the neural structures in the brain, then you're basically a pan-experientialist. You're saying that the meaning and the syntax or structure of an experience are the same. And then essentially you agree with me that matter and experience are not separate things. But the reason I say metaphysics come first is because if we devise a substance ontology, even if we say there's only one substance, we run into these conceptual difficulties when we try to interpret experiments. The Churchlands want to be eliminative about consciousness. So how exactly do they pull that off? It seems incoherent to say that I, as a scientist or philosopher, have knowledge of the fact that there is no such thing as experience. How do you Do you mean, okay, knowledge requires experience, right? So that's why I don't get it. And maybe it's just that I don't get it, but it seems like it's a performative contradiction almost to say that experience doesn't exist and I know so. But, maybe that's just me. Um, I'll admit, though, I haven't read any of Patricia Churchland's books, but I've certainly watched her give many lectures and heard her interviewed and read of her in other people's work, both criticisms and praise. Um, but let's see what you have to say about this, and we'll go from there. I'm certainly open to continuing to learn about her various specific points because as I said, I don't know her approach in detail.